Hey guys, welcome to my Affinity deck tech. This is the list I am going to be running today in the daily. I guess let's go ahead and just take a look at the land, everything else. Let's start with the land though. One of Affinity's biggest strengths is its man lands, which are Blinkmoth Nexus and Inkmoth Nexus. They win a lot of games. They turn into 1/1 flying artifact creatures. Blinkmoth is not the poison one, and then this purple one, Inkmoth, is the poison one. And the poison is sort of out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere, but it's really, it's easier to do 10 poison than 20 damage some games. And so against like Soul Sisters, this is really good. Against like Lifelink decks, this is really good. It can just really help you win, especially if you like don't really have a board presence with the rest of your creatures. If you have a cranial plating and then like two of these guys out or three of these guys out, you're fine. Um, we have four of Darksteel Citadel. It counts towards our artifact count. They're indestructible, so they get around artifact board sweeps, and they can really help Glimmervoid here stay out. So Glimmervoid has kind of a drawback. We have the end step: if you control no artifacts, sacrifice Glimmervoid, but it does allow us to play a lot of colored cards in our deck. I'm running a full 4 for 17 total land. And this, like I said, it pairs really well with Darksteel because with this out, it's really, really hard to get rid of this because Darksteel is almost impossible to blow up. I'm also running a 1 of Basic Islands so that we're not totally cold to Ghost Quarters and Path to Exiles. Moving to the cheap creatures here, Midnight. I'm running 3. Having a Midnight helps us get into our really fast fast starts because it combos with Mox Opal and Ornithopter, which are our 0-drop artifacts. Mox Opal says if you have Metalcraft, so you control 3 artifacts, you can tap it for any color of mana. So if you have out like if your hand is Darksteel, Midnight, Mox Opal, that's 2 mana turn 1 to help us power out like a fast Ravager or a Steel Overseer. So Signal Pest is another one of our evasive creatures, and it has Battle Cry, so whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It can help turn our next sign to real threats, and as well as our 0-drops, Midnight and Ornithopter, who are suddenly 2/1s and 1/2s. And it also has evasion, so it's a great cranial plating target. Springleaf Drum, I'm running 4 of these. This also helps our fast starts and mana. Tapping creatures for mana may not really seem that great, but if you have, Darksteel, Mox Opal, Midnight, Springleaf, it's 3 mana on turn 1, and while you can't use it all, it's still very powerful, and it adds to our artifact count for cranial plating or to sacrifice to Arcbound Ravager. I'm running 2 Galvanic Blasts. It's just a better lightning bolt in this deck, as you almost always have Metalcraft. In fact, they really should call the deck Metalcraft instead of Affinity. I don't actually have any cards with Affinity in the deck. I am not running Thoughtcast, and I'll get to that in a second. But this helps deal with, pods, combo pieces. It helps deal with any sort of creature decks like Merfolk or Vile decks that want to rely on their creatures to win. 4 damage is a lot in Modern. It even kills blue-white control, Jeskai controls manlands, so it's really good. Arcbound is another one of the key powerhouses in the deck. You can sack your whole board to him and have a huge Arcbound, or then sacrifice him to himself, and then put them on something like Inkmoth Nexus, sort of kill them out of nowhere. It's very powerful. Our other big threat card is Cranial Plating. If you stick one of these and you just keep putting it on a guy, it can get out of control very fast. Its favorite targets are Ornithopter, Signal Pest, Vault Scourge, and Etched Champion. Anything with evasion, anything that can hit hard. Steel Overseer is another power card, and while it's our slowest one, it's certainly not to be underestimated. It basically is a huge lightning rod, though, as people will generally bolt it like the turn he comes out. But if you untap with him and you can just pump your whole team, like a turn, think of it as like a turn 2 Gavany that is a little bit more fragile. It's very good, so I run 4. And then instead of Thoughtcast, I'm running Ensoul Artifact. This is very powerful. If you put it on Darksteel Citadel, suddenly you have a 5/5 indestructible they have to deal with. Or you can put it on something like Vault Scourge and have a 5/5 flying lifelinker on turn 2. Because, Vault Scourge is basically a 1-drop because of the Phyrexian mana cost. So that is also very strong. It's one of my favorite plays. You can get 2 for 1, but if you're up 10 life, and if you've done 10 damage to them, by the time they get a response put together, it's very, very strong. Vault Scourge is, like I said, essentially a 1-drop. He has lifelink. You pay 2 life. You put an initial investment of 2 life and 1 mana into him, but he can definitely win games. I've won an Affinity mirror match where I molded 2, and my only cards were Blinkmoth Nexus and Vault Spirit, so he's very strong, especially with Cranial Plating or Ensoul Artifact, as the life gain is not small. Etched Champion is in here. He's a 2 of. I'm splitting him with Master of Ethereum in metagames where there's a lot of spot removal. Etched Champion really shines because he cannot be targeted by any of it. but since Jund has lost a lot of popularity, he's not really as good. He's not that great against combo as he's 3 mana, very slow, and they don't really care about him a lot of the time. So he's kind of a great ogre in some matchups. He's very very bad in the mirror as he gets protection from basically nothing except for Galvanic Blast, and I don't really think that's the target they want anyway. Or Ancient Grudge. If they're good affinity players, they will not prioritize him because he has no protection from colors. He's no protection from artifacts. I'm running 2 of Master of Ethereum's. He's very powerful. If you top deck him, he's like the perfect answer to Stony Silence. If you top deck him and your board is, Memnite, Ornithopter, Signal Pest, and like you can't equip a Cranial Plating and you can't second anything to Arcbound and you can't tap Steel Overseer, he's the way out of that sort of mess. Because he immediately pumps everyone and is a big threat all by himself. Moving to the sideboard, I have Grafdigger's Cage for Pod and other sort of graveyard decks. Obviously not Living End, as it does nothing against them, but that deck's not that popular, so it's fine. And Affinity has other ways of dealing with it. You can sack your whole board to Arcbound in response to a Living End, and then sack Arcbound to itself, and then you'll get all your guys back. I'm running 1 of Illness. This is good against some of the token decks that have been running around, as well as against Splinter Twin, as it makes Pestermine a 2-0, a 1-0, and it makes Deceiver Exarch a 0-3, so they can't combo off. Due to a lot of the combo in the meta, especially Jeskai Ascendancy, I'm running 3 Thoughtseize. It's really good against combo decks. I think Affinity wants a more proactive approach. I know some lists like to run Spell Pierce, but I think Affinity wants the Thoughtseizes over the reactive counter magic. 2 Spellskites. Spellskite is a house in this deck. He's really good against other Affinity decks and spot removal. Most of the time, you'll be able to pay for the ability at least once, so it's very useful. And if not, well, if you have a Vault Scourge out, then the Phyrexian mana doesn't really matter. I'm running 2 of Ancient Grudge. Ancient Grudge is best in the mirror, but can also be brought in against stuff like Tron. Destroying target artifact is better than just dealing 4 damage to it, so very powerful card. I'm running 2 Whip Flares. Whip Flares are really good against creature decks, and I think it's really good against that Jeskai Ascendancy deck. It doesn't hit Sylvan Caryata, but it does hit a lot of other dorks, so I do think it's a strong spell. In our deck, it's a better Pyroclasm because it does not damage our creatures. 2 Etched Champions on the sides. He comes in sometimes. He can be very powerful because he's very hard to answer for a lot of decks out there, so I like to keep 2 of him around. I'm running 1 Rule of Law. It's very good against Storm, very good against combo decks, and obviously very good against the Jeskai combo deck, which I'm not sure how popular it is, but I do know it's been popping up, and I do want to be prepared for it without sacrificing too many slots. So I do think the Thoughtseizes are good against just a lot of decks in general, obviously, and I think Rule of Law is good against a lot of decks too. It's good against sort of some rogue Kiln Fiend decks. It's good against Infect. It's good against basically anything that wants to play a lot of spells in one turn. And I'm running it over Aethersworn Canonist because it cannot be bolted and it does not die to artifact removal. And then I'm running 1 of Dismember. Again, very good against creature decks, good at disrupting creature combos or just taking out a pesky Merfolk Lord or a Resto Angel. So just in there when I want an extra Galvanic Blast, but I'm choosing to play Dismember over another Galvanic Blast in the sideboard because it costs colorless mana, so it's arguably sometimes a better removal spell, but Galvanic Blast can go to the face, so that's why I'm running 2 of those in the main, and generally mana is not an issue. So that's our deck tech today. I'm hoping the sound goes through, and I will see you guys in the games.